Hello and welcome. I'm Brian Galbraith. I'm with Galbraith Family Law. We have uh, offices in Toronto and Newmarket and Barrie, and all we do is family law. We have 15 lawyers doing family law. And today I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to speak with Jennifer Barkin. Jennifer can be best described as simply a divorce professional. She seems to do it all. She's an accredited family mediator, a divorce coach, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. She's a parenting coordinator. She does arbitrations. She has a master's degree in social work, and she's a certified divorce financial analyst. So she can do it all, but you're not a lawyer. And so there's still a role for me to play. But Jennifer, I'm really pleased to have you here today. I've got your slideshow that I'll be showing from time to time. And if people who are attending the webinar want to ask any questions, you're welcome to do that in the chat at the bottom of the screen, and I'll share those with Jennifer as we go forward. So I'm going to just turn on your slideshow, and I just would love you to tell us a little bit about what it is to be a divorce coach.
So a divorce coach, we say a divorce coach is actually your thinking partner. Your divorce coach is there to help you get organized for divorce. That in the long run will save you money, even in the short run. When you have a lawyer, you don't want to call your lawyer for everything because your lawyer is billing you by the minute, by the time that you're using. Your lawyer doesn't have a therapeutic background. Your lawyer's not there to hold your hand. Your lawyer's job is to argue the strengths and weaknesses of your case, to let you know your legal rights and obligations, but not to deal with, your emotions. So a divorce coach can help you with your lawyer. Before you make an appointment with your lawyer, what sort of questions should I ask? What is the information that I need to keep you focused so you're not utilizing so much time, and that way you utilize the lawyer's time effectively.
And as a lawyer, I can say I always appreciate it when my client is working with a divorce coach, because they're more focused when they come and meet with me, and they're more in tune with how they're feeling, and they're not letting that sidetrack the negotiations and the preparations. So often clients are just overwhelmed with the emotions of the divorce, and it's just so normal. I went through my own divorce, and it was even as a divorce lawyer getting divorced, it was an emotional journey. I say that sometimes clients can be essentially impaired by their emotions, and so it impacts their ability to make good decisions. So I'm really grateful when clients work with a divorce coach like you.
Thank
I'm, you've in the next slide, you've got some things that mistakes that people make, and I'd like to share that with everyone. There's so many things that can go wrong in a separation and divorce. The first one is throwing in the towel, and I think what you mean by that is just conceding and giving up on some of the rights that some people have too early. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
I'm getting at a couple of things here. Number one, sometimes people just get so stressed out. When you're getting divorced, especially if there's children, you're thinking, where am I going to live? Where are the kids going to go to school? How am I going to tell my children? Will the kids be okay? That's a lot of stress. And then you're getting letters from the other side accusing you of all sorts of things that maybe you haven't done, but it's bringing you a lot of stress. Then you get a bill and the money's running out and there's no end in sight. So a lot of people think that the court system works like what they saw on TV, that, okay, I want a divorce and I'm going to go to court maybe within the next month and I'll get this over with and I can move on with my life. Well, that's not how it works.
And I think the other thing is they always expect that the judge will side with them.
Yes, because nobody thinks that they're in the wrong. Everybody thinks, well, I'll give you an example. When I work with women, especially women that have been stay-at-home moms, it's a really hard bridge to cross, to understand that, you know what, your kids may go with dad half the time. Courts are now seeing that moms and dads both deserve to be part of their children's lives. It's not what it was 20 years ago. So a lot of the coaching is helping women, let's say, with those emotions. What's this going to look like? What do you want your life to look like moving forward? You're not likely going to be a stay-at-home mom anymore, or have your kids 100% of the time. What else is out there for you? How can you rebuild yourself and have a great life that makes you happy? You may not see it now. So a lot of what I do is help people get unstuck.
Yeah. So the people will throw in the towel, as you say, because they're just so exhausted, so stressed, so worried, and it's just too much. And so it's so important for them just to achieve some closure so they can move on, and they'll just give up stuff that they shouldn't do, right?
Exactly, because people sometimes there are their legal rights, and they may be advised of their legal rights, and they know that they have a strong case, except it's just going on and on and on and on. You're getting worried about finances because the bills are piling up, that people will agree to these decisions that really aren't sitting well with them, but they just don't have the energy to go any further.
And
And
I think
doing that,
I just was going to say, I think it's really great when they have a divorce coach, which can help them develop some coping strategies so that they don't give up too early. But on the other hand, you talk about, another mistake is when people take the attitude, it's my way or the highway, right? They're very rigid. That's kind of on the other end of the spectrum from the throw in the towel person, right?
I'm
And
seeing a lot of rigid
right,
in all areas of my work right now. People, one mistake people make is they speak to their friends and family.
oh yeah,
And speaking to your friends and family, they're going to side with you. They want the best for you, but you can't look at what happened to, I know my cousin's brother's wife's divorce. Everybody has different circumstances. So people will look to that and look to this one example that somebody told them. It they want.
yeah.
It all
We call
doesn't.
it the Greek chorus. When the friends and family are sharing their experience and trying to influence our clients, and it can be pretty hard. I always say I think clients need to set some boundaries around these issues, because sometimes people, they're well intended, but it just they're not helpful.
Absolutely. And when people get stuck and they're rigid, let's see, spousal support, that's usually something that nobody really wants to pay. Rarely do we see people who are like, I just want to pay lots and lots of spousal support. So, as you know, there's the spousal support guidelines. And if somebody is just fighting and fighting and fighting, I don't want to pay, I don't want to pay, I don't want to pay, it's going to cost them a lot of money. And ultimately, you want to be able to move people. Okay, so I understand your fears, I understand your concerns, but maybe there's a common ground. So as a divorce coach, we do something called walking the path, where I'll put different scenarios out to the client, sort of like trying on an outfit. You don't have to buy it, but let's just try it and see what it's,
Right.
and I'll walk them through, and we'll role play and do things like that. And they may find that there's another way, maybe not 100% of how they wanted it, but they get that aha moment that maybe this won't be so bad, or maybe this will be okay.
Right.
That helps them get to resolution.
Yeah. And I sometimes think, you know, when I do mediation or negotiation, sometimes people get stuck on one issue, and so what we'll do is we'll just park that issue and go on to another issue. And it's amazing. You come back to the first issue where they were stuck, and it's all of a sudden resolvable because they've resolved other things, and then they can start to see a resolution that works for both parties. So it's
Yeah, I do that all the time in mediation. And also, when you're having people that are in conflict is often driven out of anger and out of fear. So if you're getting to a point where people are starting to come to agreements on a lot of things, their positions change. That maybe this person isn't as unreasonable as I thought they were.
right. Well, yeah, I've heard underlying anger is either fear or sadness.
I believe that.
Yeah. And it's so much harder, I think, for clients during this pandemic. That sort of just adds another layer to it. Are you finding you're seeing more and more high conflict people in your practice?
I'd say 90% of the people I'm seeing now, conflict has escalated drastically.
Yeah.
With that, domestic violence as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Domestic violence is hundreds, like 200-300 times increase in domestic violence is what I understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm seeing that
Why do you think that's happening?
for a couple of reasons. Um, Pandemic has not helped marriages. So most of these marriages, I believe, they weren't solid marriages before pandemic began. But before pandemic, for example, people went off to work, they left the house, they went to work. They weren't together 24/7. So now you're taking people who don't get along, that had an escape from the home, they're stuck together 24 hours, 7 days a week. Add in maybe having to homeschool the kids, that's not helping. Fear of pandemic, fear of money. People have lost their jobs, they've lost their livelihood. So everything is just piling up, and it just feels like a train that's about to crash.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all that uncertainty, you know, about your health, your children's health. When will the schools be open again? You know, what are the rules in this pandemic for interacting with other human beings, and when are they changing? And is there? Am I going to have a job in a month? And you know, so much uncertainty added to all the uncertainty of the separation and divorce. It's just so stressful for people.
It's really pushing people over the edge.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's this isolation is hard even for good relationships. But
Yes.
those people on with a rocky relationship, that's what we're seeing is they're just, you know, pushed over. I think you're what you said as well. A good way of saying it, they're just pushed over the edge.
I think one of the things that's come out in pandemic, one of the statements that you hear it all the time and it bothers me, is we're all in this together, because we're not all in this together. There's a big difference if you're employed by the government, you have your paycheck coming in, you're in a business that can sell online where a lot of your sales happen that way. If you're in a good relationship with your spouse, if your children are healthy.
Yeah. And we certainly know that I think in the States, if you're Black, you have a 10, I don't know, many times higher chance of, I think it was 10 times higher chance of getting COVID. And that's because so many Blacks are working in close proximity to other people, and they don't have the opportunities to work remotely. Like me, I've been working remotely for months. In fact, before the pandemic, I worked remotely. But a lot of these essential workers are not able to do that, and so they're more likely also to have crowded housing situations. It's more difficult for them to isolate from others outside of their family. their bubbles are much bigger,
Absolutely.
which creates greater risk. So yeah, I remember saying that too at the beginning. Is that isn't this something that this is an event that everyone in the world is going to experience together, and this is something that we are all treated equally. But it's not true. That was a mistake. It really does impact some people far greater than others. Yeah.
I
You
agree.
one of the mistakes you refer in the slideshow is uh, uh, betting the farm on a new relationship. Uh,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
I used to work with a financial planner, and her statement was, "A man is not a plan."
I like that. And I
Yeah.
also, I've heard women say they don't want to be a nurse or a purse.
Ah.
I've heard that one too. But betting on the farm on a new relationship really boils down to when people meet somebody else, and especially coming from a marriage that was maybe stale, maybe it was abusive, you meet somebody else and it's that honeymoon stage where everything is wonderful, you laugh together, you have fun together, maybe not in pandemic, you don't, but that's just generally how it is. But you're only seeing, it's like the vacation romance where I don't have work, I don't have stresses, and people are putting their on their best outfit. So you don't
Right.
really get to know people until what are they like when they're angry? What are they like when things don't go their way? How would this person be with your kids if you have children? So everything looks very pretty and fancy and perfect, but you haven't gotten to know this person really well. So people will make decisions back to betting the farm on a new relationship. Well, I'm not going to worry. Ugh, I don't care if I ever get proper financial disclosure from him or her. And I don't care if I don't get the proper amount of this because I'm going to end up with this person and live happily ever after, like my Prince Charming in a
Right.
Cinderella story. Well, that might not happen.
Right.
And stats show that even if you do remarry, um, the number of second marriages that break up is even greater than first marriages. And it gets even higher on third marriages.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but I think sometimes people will rush into a new relationship out of in response to the pain of the end of their first relationship or marriage. That they just want to achieve closure and they want to get to a better place, and they push things, and they just jump into a more difficult situation. So I see it all the time that people move too quickly into relationships, but I don't blame them. It's such a difficult time, and people just want want to want to finish the pain and get on with life, right?
The problem, though, tends to be people are often not accountable, do not hold themselves accountable for what went wrong in the marriage or in the previous relationship. And it takes two. So it could be I was the enabler that for many years I didn't speak up and because I didn't want confrontation, and then one day I just couldn't handle it anymore. Um, Sometimes people got married for the wrong reasons and they never communicated well together, but they never took the steps to learn to understand that other person. Somebody may not have realized that I'm very rigid in my own ways and I wasn't willing to bend on the little things. Saying, "Ugh, I can't be bothered to have this discussion." So just letting it fester and build and build. And unless you recognize what you did and you're accountable, you're going to take these same things into the next relationship. And you have to know yourself what you can put up with, what you can't put up with. really, before you run front to the next relationship.
Yeah, and so is that one of the things that a divorce coach will do is look at, what got you to this point in your first relationship so you can learn some lessons from that and bring it forward in the next relationship. For example, a huge one I think is communication and being able to communicate honestly and respectfully with each other, learning how to argue.
Learning how to argue, and I teach language. So I'll give you an example. If you're upset with me, Brian, and you say to me, Jennifer, you always,
Right.
already, I'm not hearing anything that you're saying past that. I'm already upset with you, and I feel that I'm attacked. So
Right.
what's happening is, we call it in the reptilian brain, I'm going into fight or flight.
Right.
So I will teach people, and this skill is very important in co-parenting, even down the road, right? How are you going to speak to this other person? Because it's no longer an intimate relationship. You can't speak to them the way that you did. They're going to hang up on you, take you to court even. So how are we going to learn to communicate? So again, I'll do a lot of role playing and give them new words. So rather than, if I say to you, you always, I can say, child came home from school today, it's not COVID, right? And said that this happened. I'm a little concerned. Can you tell me what happened? I want to hear from you. Is a lot nicer than, again, you did this thing.
Right. Absolutely. But you can teach your clients these skills, but their spouse or their ex might not know how to deal with these things. And we can't change our exes, right? And so I guess, is that one of the things you help clients come to terms with, is the fact that they can only control how they respond to their ex and to their situation. They can't control the other person.
Yes. So there's a couple of things that I'll teach. Number one, and this one I actually learned from a very well-known psychiatrist, and it really resonated with me, and I pass it on. Not everybody has the capacity. And what I mean by capacity is, well, you may understand that if I do action A, it's going to lead to this. Your ex-spouse may not understand that. They may not be able to see that. So I can't change how they're thinking. This is who they are. And I have to get comfortable. No matter how much explaining, their capacity is small.
Right.
I'm not.
I tell people that it's important you lower your expectations, because if you expect them to communicate in uh, a mature manner, you'll be disappointed many times. But if you lower your expectations, then you'll be more accepting. You're more accepting of a 4-year-old who has a temper tantrum, because you say, oh, that's what 4-year-olds do. And so if you start thinking about your ex as a 4-year-old and have the same sort of expectations, then you won't be triggered by their temper tantrums or their bad behavior. What do you think of that?
Exactly. And also, another divorce coach, she's excellent. Her name's Stacy Mendelson. She's in the GTA. She said that she tells her clients, so I learned this from her too, is if the client comes and says, this is going on, and I'm so upset. And, she just says to them, well, of course they're doing that. Of course they are. So you sort of take the client back here. Aha, right. Why is this? But I know this is what this person's all about.
Right.
And it makes it a little easier. But also, what a divorce coach does is I help people recognize their triggers. So I might teach them and get them to have a little bit of awareness. Do you get shaky? Does your stomach get upset? Do you start to feel very hot, right? Because those are all signs that you're about to lose it. So I might give them some tips and some things and some recommendations, let's say for mindfulness and teach them a little bit about that, because I have that from my therapy training, so that they don't go over the top.
Right. And usually, I think most people are triggered when there's some sort of a threat. They feel threatened in some way, and it's so important, I think, to be able to recognize what those threats might be, you know, and it's not easy to do. That's why it's a great idea to work with a divorce coach to help you recognize, you know, when I felt that thing in my stomach when he said whatever, it's why was it? Why did I respond that way, right? And what is the threat that I was feeling at that moment? I think it's really great work that you do with clients, you know, helping
Thank
them.
you.
Yeah, it's so important for people to get through these difficult times. One of your in your slide, you talk about people using their lawyer as a therapist. And we kind of talked about that a little bit. You know, I am not trained as a therapist at all. We're just not equipped to do that kind of work. It's like, you know, going to a dentist for heart surgery, you know. Dentist might be a doctor, but that is not what their focus is on. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Clients need to spend their money with people who have the skills that can help them. And like a divorce coach or a therapist has totally different skill set than a lawyer. Have you seen that in your practice where people use a lawyer as a therapist?
Yes, and what I explain to them foremost is I ask, how much is your lawyer per hour? Your lawyer may listen and say, but can't really advise you and help you process your emotions, or, you know, give you what you're looking for in that way, but you're going to get a big bill for it.
Right.
So that's
Right.
back to not using your lawyer's time effectively. That's not
Right.
what your lawyer's there for.
And then clients get upset with the bill, but they spent the time with the lawyer. And so I think it's a good advice to work with a divorce coach and then be very focused on the legal issues when you're with the lawyer. Another one you say is seeking help from the wrong people. That's that Greek chorus. We talked about that a little bit.
Yep.
What people are well intended, but you know, often can redirect you. And then tell me about this one, is letting others make your decisions for you. What's that all about?
Burnout. If you reach a place of burnout, emotional burnout, sometimes even you're getting to that financial, you know, you're tapped out, and you can't think anymore. So you just say to even your lawyer, okay, whatever. The lawyer may say to you, do you want me to do this or this? How do you wish to proceed? You do what you want. But your lawyer's going home to his or her family, and your lawyer doesn't have to live your life. So that's what I mean by that. Taking control of your own life and making decisions that are best for you and your kids, for you and your family.
Right. In this next slide, this I'm really interested in, and I want you to help me understand this and everyone watching this as well. But this is mostly about for me. Tell me about the difference between therapy and coaching. What is that all about?
So they both have their places. When you work with a therapist looks to often your family of origin. That's the family you grew up in. What the roles were of your mom, your dad, how children were treated, how children were disciplined. So looking to the past to help you understand your present behaviors. And it can be quite lengthy, but it's not helping you dealing with moving forward now, where a coach jumps right in there and says, okay, I'm sure all these things happened and all that's very interesting and all the reflections very interesting, but we have to help you get through what you're going through now. and give you some tools and confidence to move forward successfully.
So the coach is more about getting through the divorce stage, and the therapist is looking at a broader, bigger changes and development of the individual. Is that about
Right. So even when I like to think when therapy, we have a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is just a fancy term of letting you understand why you do what you do, which is all great, but it doesn't help you stop doing what you're doing. So coaching is giving you tools and ways of dealing with the things that you're dealing with today
right? Right.
and
Yeah.
how you're going to get ahead.
So a person could have a divorce coach when they're going through their divorce, and have a therapist over the long term to help with the other issues in their life. Would that be fair?
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. And divorce coaches can help with more than just the separation and divorce stage. They can help throughout your divorce life. So if you have children and you're introducing new partner and you're blending a family, what's this looking like? Right. So they can help you work through those issues as well.
Right. Okay, that was helpful. Let me ask these questions. I'm looking at your slides here again. And how can a divorce coach help? We've talked about some of this already. Talked about avoiding being triggered by your ex and understanding what's going on when you're feeling those physical feelings of in your body. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people aren't aware of is to listen to their body, because their body can tell you what's going, that something's happening with you emotionally, right?
Absolutely. It's sort of, there's that saying, if your gut's telling you something, you should listen to it.
Right, right. So, and then you talked about walk through different scenarios. I think that would be really helpful, and just getting the clients to envision themselves in different situations and what that would be like, and getting them to more comfortable with that. We have a saying, Jennifer, that when one door closes, another one opens, but it's hell in the hallway.
I like
and
that.
and our clients are in the hallway and they just can't even see the doors, that there is a door that might be open for them to develop their own future. So I think it's really great to be able to show them different scenarios.
Sure.
Go ahead.
And also, sometimes if we're thinking of doors, what's behind closed doors? And sometimes the unknown is very scary. So by walking people through, so what could happen? What could happen? And just talking it out in that way can get them from that place of fear to, well, maybe it's not so scary behind that door.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. And you say acting is your thinking partner. What does that mean? Just trying to help them cope with, recognize their emotions, but stay in but being able to still be rational. Is that what you're talking about there?
Yes, when people are stuck, whether it's in fear or in anger, they often don't have the ability to think clearly. Everything's all muffled. So a thinking partner really sits down with you and goes through what you're thinking, the pros and the cons and why. And it's very similar to walking you through the different scenarios and, let's say, the role playing, but your thinking partner is having these discussions with you, the pros and the cons and what this looks like and things like that.
Right. And then you talk about keeping your emotions in check, and of course we've talked about that, is that how the emotions can really negatively impact your ability to negotiate and make any decisions, right? It's just a dark cloud. Assistance with the professionals, lawyers, accountants, and therapists. How do you help the different other professionals?
So I spoke about working with your lawyer, but also divorce coaches, they get an idea for who you are, what you're looking for. And I always say, if you're choosing a family law lawyer, there's different types of family law lawyers, and different family law lawyers have different strengths and predominantly work in different areas. So my client could be a high net worth client, and maybe you want a lawyer who really doesn't deal so much with the kids but really focuses on the money. And maybe there's been some domestic violence. Well, you're going to want a family law lawyer who's going to understand the safety issues, all of those sorts of things, who understands domestic violence, safety plans, resources, putting you in touch with the right resources for you, keeping you and your children safe. Um, Even in writing a parenting plan, if there's addiction or drug use, somebody that has some knowledge of these sorts of things and knows to put in a parenting plan, maybe some boundaries of, um, the other person is going to restrain for up to 48 hours or whatever it may be before being around the children. So different lawyers for different things, and specialists. So often, and I'm going to say women, because this is predominantly, I see more women who do not understand money. Men, they may both have jobs, but the men tend to understand the money more. So they may look after paying the household bills and the realty taxes and manage the household budgeting. So the women don't understand money as much. I mean, it can be the men, but so maybe a certified divorce financial analyst who helps you understand the impact of different settlements. What a settlement, often in negotiations, there's talk of, is it going to be a lump sum? I'm going to offer you this for X amount of years. What's this going to look like for you? What's your lifestyle today? What's the rate of inflation? Will you be able to maintain that in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years? So I may give them a list of certified divorce financial analysts to reach out to. That's another type of professional. Therapist for the children. So if you're a divorce coach, you get an idea of what your client really needs and what could help them, and be able to make the right referrals. So that
Yeah.
helps.
So you really are a coach, right? In
Yeah.
the sense that you're helping them make good decisions and get to the people that they need, so that they can get the resources and make the best decisions for their family. We have a question. One question is, how would you approach an ex regarding the idea of going to mediation to develop a parenting plan? How do you approach that? And often especially nowadays with the stress of the pandemic, people are on edge. People are they're in more of a high conflict separation. How do you approach those spouses, your ex-spouse, about doing something different than court-like mediation?
So there's a couple of things that you can say. Firstly, I'd like, mediation is voluntary, so both people would have to be on board. You can't force somebody to go to mediation. Saying that, you have to prepare your script. So whether you're going to say it in person or you're going to send it in an email, watch your language, be nice about it. You're my partner, so Brian, this marriage isn't working. We have kids. We're going to have to figure out a way that we're going to be good co-parents moving forward. I love the kids. I know you do too. We don't want this to get nasty. We don't want it to get ugly. And I don't think both of us want to spend a ton of money. So I've been looking at family mediation. It's faster, meaning we can get to a resolution quicker. Family mediation allows for both of us to have some input in decisions that are important to us. The mediator is going to help us learn to communicate. So I know we've been having a hard time communicating lately, but a mediator, that's their job, is to help us and to help us come up with ways that we may not have thought of that could work for both of us. And if it doesn't work, we really have nothing to lose. We haven't invested a ton of money, and we can always go the legal route, and we can always go to court. But in mediation, we can also choose something called closed mediation. And that means that our kids are never going to Google us and read about us down the road. So it's just a way of maybe having a nicer divorce. Not that divorce is ever nice, but making things as good as they can be for our kids. Because we're not just co-parenting these kids till they're 18. One day somebody's going to graduate college, and it would be nice if we could sit in the auditorium together so our child doesn't come off a stage and wonder which parent to say hello to first. And hopefully one day we'll be grandparents. And wouldn't it be nice if we can go to a bris, a christening, whatever family function, and just make things comfortable for our kids and pleasant for our kids? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good approach. I'm persuaded. You know what? The other process that I'm keen on is called collaborative practice, which is similar to mediation. They're kindred spirits, I always say. And collaborative practice, mediation is where one person who is a neutral sits down with both parties and helps them negotiate an agreement. Collaborative practice is different in the sense that both parties have a lawyer and usually a financial professional and a family professional or a divorce coach who sits. They work together as a team to come to a resolution. So collaborative practice, there's a commitment that nobody's going to go to court, and everyone's going to work together to find an agreement. And it's so much better than duking it out in court. You know, we do court cases. We have I have several lawyers who do many court cases on a regular basis when it's necessary. But our plan A is to try to resolve things without going to court if possible. Plan B, when necessary, we'll go to court. Another thing, your role playing that speech was really great. But another idea that we sometimes give to our clients is that maybe you're not the best person to talk to your ex about mediation or collaborative practice. Maybe you know, anything you say, there will be an adverse response, you know, some sort of a trick, right? So maybe you can talk to somebody else who might approach them about mediation or collaborative practice, like their brother or their rabbi or minister or somebody else that you could talk to about an alternative process, and then they could share that information with your ex. And that sometimes works because sometimes then the ex isn't triggered by that other person, that third person.
Sure,
So
because if it's so contentious, sometimes the ex, if it's just because it's coming from you, they don't want to hear it. Where anybody else who would say the same thing, different result.
yeah, absolutely. So it's another alternative. You also said on your slideshow here that you improve communication between you and your ex, which obviously communication is so important in in every relationship, especially in a marriage and beyond a marriage. If you have children, you're going to have to communicate going forward.
So I want to add to that a little bit. We spoke about it earlier about how the pandemic conflict is escalated so much. So adding to communication, there are communication apps for parents to use when the communication is so heated. One of them, a well-known one, is called the Family Wizard. And the Family Wizard keeps a record of everything that's gone back and forth. And it lights up red if your language is just atrocious, right? And can be used against you too. So I will help people with wording how they're going to word. Because if you really cannot stand the other person, I always say, you know, you better read it a couple of times, maybe sleep on it before you send it. but I'll also help them word how they're going to communicate what they need, what has to be, because especially with kids, I mean, this marriage may be ending, but your relationship is just changing. It's not ending. It's a different kind of relationship.
Yeah.
So the coach's job is to help people transition into that new relationship.
Yeah, I tell my clients about Family Wizard. It's a really great app and can be very helpful. But regardless of what platform you use, I always say, assume that a judge might read your communications one day, or assume that your children might stumble upon it.
I love the children one. My part-time volunteer job, I teach the mandatory information program in a couple of the Ontario courts. I mean, now it's all on Zoom, but before I did 3 Toronto courts. So we teach about all these communication when there's high conflict. And I always say, if you won't send it to your boss or to grandma, don't send it.
Right.
Same idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I also like the idea of sleeping on it. I would sometimes will write when I feel triggered. I write an email and then I press delete, and then I come back to it the next day. And you know what? Usually the next day I have a whole different approach that is much more rational and helpful.
Exactly.
So that's good advice too.
Sometimes just writing it makes you feel better.
Absolutely.
But don't press send. That's all.
Okay, well, your last slide here has your contact information, which is really, really great. And so that people can contact you with the phone number, or they can go to the Toronto Family Mediation.ca website and get contact through there as well. And yeah, I really appreciate you doing this webinar with me today, Jennifer. It's been really helpful.
I'm really happy that you asked me to come.
And I hope that it's been helpful to people who are attended it and who will be watching it on YouTube, because everybody needs some help. It is, if people are feeling like they're really struggling, you're not alone. We're seeing that we're overrun with clients right now, as are you, I know, Jennifer, because so many people are going through separation or divorce, and it's tough. But there's better ways to get through it, and I sure encourage you to consider using a divorce coach like Jennifer is, because they can really help you get through it with the least amount of pain, right?
Yeah, I think my only thing that I have to add to that, when picking a divorce coach, the same way that you're choosing a lawyer or your family doctor, you have to feel that click. You have to feel comfortable with the person you're going to be working with. If there's any listeners today that, whatever, they don't think they'd be comfortable with me and they're interested. Heather Tannenbaum is fabulous. She's a certified divorce coach. Stacy Mendelson, I'm happy to give referrals as well, especially sometimes I'm retained or hired as family mediator, parenting coordinator. I'm not allowed to, what they say, wear 2 hats for the same family. So I just want to say that there are a couple of excellent people that I can help recommend too.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you very much, and best wishes as we go forward into 2021.
Thank you for having me.
Take care. Bye.